My son's lies cost me my reputation. The security camera footage set things right. I, 45M, never thought I'd be writing this, but I need to get it off my chest. My reputation in our community was destroyed because of my son's lies, and it took security camera footage to finally reveal the truth. It's a long story, but I think it's important to share every detail to show how quickly a life can unravel from false accusations. Everything started 6 months ago. My son had always been a good kid, honor roll student, active in school clubs, never gave us any real trouble. But things began changing when he started hanging out with a new group of friends in his junior year. His grades started slipping, he became increasingly defiant, and we caught him lying about small things. My wife and I were concerned but chalked it up to typical teenage behavior. Then came the party incident. It was a Friday night, and he told us he was staying at a friend's house to work on a school project. I had a gut feeling something was off, so I drove by the friend's house. No one was home. After calling around, we discovered he'd gone to a party where there was alcohol. I found him there, clearly drunk, and brought him home. The next morning, we had a serious discussion. We grounded him for 2 weeks. No phone, no gaming, no going out except for school. He didn't take it well. He screamed that we were ruining his life, that everyone else's parents let them go to parties, that we were controlling freaks. I remained calm but firm. This was about trust and safety, not about controlling him. 2 days into his punishment, things escalated. He came home from school in a terrible mood. When I reminded him to do his homework before dinner, he exploded. We had an argument in the driveway, him yelling about how unfair everything was, me trying to maintain boundaries while keeping my cool. He stormed off to his room, and I thought that was the end of it. He didn't come down for dinner. When my wife went to check on him, his room was empty. Window open, backpack gone. My heart dropped. We spent hours calling his friends, driving around town, growing more worried by the minute. No one had seen him. Around 9 p.m., we got a call from my sister-in-law. Our son was at her house, but what she told us next made my blood run cold. He had shown up crying, with a bruise on his face, claiming I had hit him during our argument. According to him, I had lost control, slapped him across the face, and shoved him into his room. He said this wasn't the first time, that I had been physically abusive for months, and he couldn't take it anymore. I was stunned. In 20 years of parenting, I had never laid a hand on my kids. We didn't even believe in spanking. My wife knew this, but I could see doubt creeping into her eyes as my sister-in-law related his detailed story. He had described everything so vividly. How I had grabbed his shirt, how my wedding ring had caught his cheek, how I had threatened worse if he told anyone. The next few weeks were a nightmare. My sister-in-law, convinced by my son's performance, had documented his bruise and reported it to Child Protective Services. They opened an investigation. My wife, though initially supportive, began sleeping in the guest room. She said she needed space to think. Her family stopped speaking to me entirely. Word spread through our community like wildfire. We live in a small town where everyone knows everyone, and rumors travel fast. Parents I'd known for years crossed the street to avoid me. At my daughter's soccer practice, other parents pulled their kids away when I approached. My daughter, confused and hurt, asked why her friends weren't allowed to come over anymore. The professional implications were even worse. I'm a high school teacher, and while no formal action was taken pending the investigation, I could feel my career crumbling. The principal suggested I take a leave of absence until things settled down. My colleagues, people I'd worked with for over a decade, suddenly had reasons to be elsewhere when I entered the teacher's lounge. The isolation was crushing. I spent sleepless nights trying to understand why my son would do this. Was he so angry about being grounded that he wanted to destroy my life? Had I been too strict? Not strict enough? The self-doubt was consuming me. Then I remembered our security system. We'd installed a doorbell camera last year after some package thefts in the neighborhood. It had a wide-angle view of the front porch and driveway, exactly where our argument had taken place. In my shock over the accusations, I hadn't even thought about it. I spent a whole weekend going through archived footage. The camera stored 2 months of video, and I had to find the exact day and time. Finally, I found it. The footage showed our entire argument, crystal clear. You could see us both, hear every word. There was no physical contact at all, but what I saw next made me sick. The camera had caught my son later that evening, standing in the driveway. He looked around to make sure no one was watching, then deliberately hit himself in the face several times. He checked his reflection in his phone, seemed satisfied with the mark he'd made, and then ran off into the night. The whole thing had been premeditated. I showed the footage to my wife first. She watched it 3 times, then broke down completely. She kept apologizing for doubting me, for letting her family turn against me, for not trusting her instincts about our son. It was hard to watch, but I understood. The evidence against me had seemed compelling. We called a family meeting with my in-laws and showed them the video. The room was silent except for my mother-in-law's crying. My son, confronted with undeniable evidence, finally confessed. He had been angry about the grounding and wanted revenge. He said he got the idea from a crime show and thought it would just mean I'd have to let him go to parties. He hadn't anticipated how far it would go or how many people would get involved. The aftermath has been complicated. The CPS investigation was closed, and the school administration apologized for their handling of the situation. But rebuilding trust has been harder. We're all in family therapy now, individually and together. My son was diagnosed with anxiety and depression, which helped explain some of his recent behavior changes. He's on medication now and seeing a therapist twice a week. The consequences for his actions were significant. Besides therapy, he had to write personal apology letters to everyone affected by his lies. He's doing community service at a local youth center, and his phone and computer access are strictly monitored. But we're focusing on rehabilitation rather than punishment. He's showing genuine remorse and working hard to earn back trust. My relationship with my wife has actually grown stronger through this. We've had hard conversations about trust, communication, and how we handle crises as a couple. The family therapy has helped us understand each other better and improved how we deal with conflicts. The community has been slower to come around. Some neighbors have apologized for jumping to conclusions, but others still keep their distance. My daughter's social life is slowly returning to normal, though some parents remain wary. At school, things are mostly back to normal, but I know the whispers will take time to die down completely. The hardest part has been rebuilding my relationship with my son. Looking at him sometimes, I still see that calculated deception in my mind. But then I remember he's just a teenager who made a terrible mistake. The therapist helps us understand that his actions, while inexcusable, came from a place of pain and poor judgment rather than malice. For parents who might face similar situations, document everything. Install security cameras not because you don't trust your kids, but because sometimes the truth needs witnesses. Pay attention to sudden behavior changes. They often signal deeper issues. And most importantly, keep lines of communication open with your kids, even when they push you away. We're healing, but it's a daily process. My son is doing better in school again, making better choices in friends, and showing his old personality more often. We have a long way to go, but I see hope now where I once saw only betrayal. Edit. Thank you all for the overwhelming support and awards. To address some common questions. 1. Yes, my son faced real consequences beyond therapy. The community service, restricted privileges, and monitoring will continue for the foreseeable future. 2. We did consider legal action against those who spread the rumors, but our focus is on healing our family. 3. For those asking about the security camera model, it's just a basic doorbell camera. The lesson isn't about which brand to buy, but about protecting yourself with evidence. Edit 2. Some have asked why I didn't show the footage immediately. Honestly, I was in shock and didn't think I needed to prove my innocence. I thought people who knew me would believe me. By the time I realized how serious it was, finding the specific footage took time. Don't make my mistake. Act quickly to defend yourself. Final edit. To the parents messaging me about their own situations with false accusations, I'm reading every message and will try to respond when I can. Stay strong, document everything, and remember that the truth usually finds a way out. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this story, please hit that subscribe button. Don't forget to give it a thumbs up and share it with friends or family who might enjoy it too. Your support means a lot. And if you have any thoughts, questions, or story ideas, drop them in the comments below. I'd love to hear from you. See you in the next story.